I am here with Beryl Reichenberg. Is that right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yay!
Yay. Beryl Reichenberg. Yes.
Yay! And we are doing an episode of Meet the Artist.
Hmm.
So I'm super excited that Beryl is here with us today, and we're going to get to know who she is and what she's about. And I'm just super excited about that. So, Beryl,
Yes.
tell us something that nobody knows about you.
Oh my gosh.
I know, a little unexpected, but like I think it's a super great way to start.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, a lot of people don't know that I'm a twin, a
Oh,
fraternal twin. We don't look at all alike. My sister and I don't look all alike. And but that has that's been part of my life, as I go along, because we obviously were in the womb together, and we grew up together, and we went to school together, and our lives have sort of diverged over the past years. She's living in Arizona, but um, it's kind of an interesting experience to have grow up with somebody that intimately. Yeah.
is she creative or an artist as well?
No, she's a chiropractor. She's she's
Oh, that's hysterical.
my mother was an artist, and my maternal great grandmother was an artist, and so I sort of grew up with that in the family.
That's awesome. I had
And
none.
yes, yeah,
So
and
that
my
was,
grandchildren are creative, yeah. So it does follow in the family, but I
my
guess
daughter is none.
yes, yeah.
So
And
that
my
was,
grandchildren are creative, yeah. So it does follow in the family, but I
my
guess
daughter
my
is how, so in that you've been creating or doing art for,
I started doing, I took watercolor lessons when I was about 8 or 9 years old. And
oh,
that's when I started. And, I just watched my mother. She was a painter, and I
what was her
watched her.
medium?
She did, let's see, Japanese brush painting. She
Oh,
did,
very cool.
yeah, she did uh, acrylic. She did oils. She did mostly oils. Yeah, back in the and so I just was steeped in it
Right.
from an early age. But I didn't get involved in creating art until much later in my life. I started taking classes in ceramics,
Fun.
and really enjoyed the process of throwing pots and
Oh my gosh,
feeling the
that's the one thing I
clay.
I want to do that so bad.
Oh
Like,
yeah, but and so I took some classes. I took some classes at Hancock and some classes at Cuesta College, and but I found it not very satisfying, because once you fire the plate piece, and you don't quite know how it's going to turn out when you fire it,
right?
and then you look at it and say, "Oh my God, now what I can't, what can I do with this? It's
Can't fix it.
it's finished. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
done.
It's done." So couple of I've been involved with groups, several groups, a couple of groups. One group of friends for 40 some odd years, and we were all artists, and a lot of them are fiber artists, quilters and weavers, and so forth. And another friend and I from the group, we got involved in handmade paper, and we went to Japan and took some classes in paper, and started making our own paper, which was hard work.
And it is.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a
pounding
lot of
and
work.
boiling and all that kind of stuff. And I figured out that it was a lot easier to just buy paper from somebody else.
Not a doubt.
Without a
Right.
doubt, yeah. So I got enamored with paper because of its transparency. And Japanese paper and Oriental papers are got long fibers, so they're very strong. Um, and so that I'm interested in the translucency of paper, the fragility of paper, and so I started making paper baskets, out of some of the forms that I threw, pot forms that I threw.
Oh, nice.
And so that was the morph, and moved into that. And I also have joined another group of artists. I've been with them for like 20 years, and we were doing paper books, handmade books.
Yeah, I saw some of those on your website.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I was like, okay, so number one, I'm like a huge book lover.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and I love paper in general. So when I was looking at that part of your site, I was like, oh my gosh, this stuff is like speaks to my heart, man.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, the other secret that you probably don't know is that I write and publish children's picture books. So I've gotten into that since I've become a grandmother. And
gosh, doesn't that make a huge difference?
Yes.
Oh, the stories we could tell.
Well, that's right. Well, my grandfather used to tell us stories, at night in front of the fire. So that's a natural direction for me as well. Yeah. So so all of that sort of coalesces together.
Right.
The piece that called Market Day that you saw, in the show, that's a book form, but it tells a story, and I'm interested in stories, and so I like to do pieces where I can tell a story, and
so you feel like that's a pretty common theme among artists, is that whenever they're creating, like there's this backstory, right? There's this story to this piece. This piece has already told you its story, essentially, right? It's already told you who it is and what it's about, and now your job is to
convey that,
bring it to life.
Right? Yes, right. And your pieces tell stories. Your sculptural pieces tell stories.
Yeah.
And I think a lot, painters and all sorts of other artists.
I think it all starts with that. Like,
it's
a little whisper in your ear of a story, right?
Right.
And then what that looks like. What does that story look like? And and how can I tell it?
How can I convey that? How can I express that story? And it's all part of that process, that creative process, which is so addictive. Because
oh my gosh, I was just thinking, so I was not going to go to the addictive area, but
well, it's something that you just have to do.
I agree with that. I feel like that's, when I think about, creativity is in like literally all the things that I do, for a living. I'm a hairdresser.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I work with fiber.
Yes.
Literally, like every day, but it's all about like telling a story. It's all about creating. It's all about movement and color. And so I feel like that in itself is like, it's a total art.
Right. Well, who does this person want to be? Who does this person that you're doing their hair, what do they want to look like? Right. What is their story that you can help create by fixing their hair? Yeah.
So I was going to, instead of going to the addicted area, which I don't disagree, I was going to go to the like, oh my God, aren't we so lucky?
We are.
Area.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm like, every time I think about it, I think, dang, are there just like millions of people out there who have stories that you can't get them out?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And how lucky are we that, we found an avenue, so to speak, to tell the stories we hear or tell the stories we feel.
Right.
And I always just feel super lucky.
Yeah, and can communicate those stories to other people.
Right.
And in a sense, when you start telling that story to somebody else, they come back with their own feelings and their own story.
Right.
And it's kind of amazing. You know, you can have a dialogue then between the artist and the viewer in terms
Which
of,
is even a more beautiful thing. I mean, some of the reactions to some of my pieces have been like, oh my God, like this. And I'm like, oh, that's super interesting. I can totally see how you could see that. But here was my heart, right? Here was like my story behind it, but your filter, right? Because we all view life in general through our own filter, our own life experiences, our own life stuff.
Right.
You know, it changes the perspective of my story.
Right. And it's interesting to hear their version of your story because they can, you know, add a different dimension to it. They responded to it in a different way, and it adds to your creativity in a sense.
It definitely does, because I think it makes me more aware of the story, right? Is I try to, every time I hear something, try to get a broader perspective of, this is the story I'm telling. How could other people see it? Here's the deal. I don't really care, right? So much as it's my story. And that's the story that has to come out. So if I try to create a story that everybody's going to like, or everybody's going to have a
no,
positive version of, it's not going to be the right story.
Right. It won't be your story.
It won't be.
But then once you put it out there, everybody has a right to look at that and say, okay, I can understand this, or I don't understand it. And they add to that their own perspective to that story. Yeah.
I agree. And I think that's a lovely thing too, because then it feels like the piece is really alive.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
Because if your piece speaks life into somebody, right, creates any kind of emotional response, it's done its job.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
It's done its job. It has reached out and touched somebody and made an impact. And
that's what art is about.
Yeah,
it's reaching out and touching other people.
Yeah.
You know,
I totally agree.
Yeah.
So, do you have any pieces currently in any other exhibitions or any other locations?
Well, I continue to put pieces in the Morro Bay Art Museum. I have 3 pieces there now. And I also belong to the Paso Robles Art Center.
Okay.
Up at Studios on the Park. And I have...
God, I love that place.
I have a couple of pieces there. And then I also have a number of pieces at the Park Street Gallery in Paso.
Nice.
And I've been with them for a number of years. So, my art's out there. Recently I had some pieces at SLOMA, some of my baskets at SLOMA and the craft makers collaboration with SLOMA. I keep trucking along.
Well, you keep making. Here's maybe an odd question, but do you have a lot of storage at your house?
What?
Do you have a lot of storage at your house?
Oh, you said this is my studio space. Most of the pieces I produce are small pieces.
Right.
I tend to think in terms of small pieces and in terms of 3 dimension. Okay. Although I didn't mention that I spent several years doing photography, and I had a dark room in one of my bathrooms, and took some classes at Cuesta. And I have been now going through and looking at those photographs and doing photo collages, cutting them up and reconstituting them. Part of it from my fiber background of weaving or sewing, and I've sewn some photographs together on the machine, and I've done some stitching. and adding collage material to the photographs. So that's been kind of a new avenue. Well, not a new avenue because I've been doing it, but I concentrated on that recently.
A new way to use what you used to use.
Yes,
right?
exactly. But in a new way, in redoing them and reconstituting them. Yeah. So it's you look at it and you think, what this needs.
Right.
Start working on it.
What can I do with this?
Yes, exactly. Or sometimes you say, gee, I don't know what to do with this. And you put it aside and then you look at it, you say, wait a minute, you suddenly get an idea. I'm a person that needs a lot of stuff around so that I get ideas from what I see,
Right. I think that's interesting because it's almost like there's all these stories out there waiting to be told, right? And they don't always reveal themselves in the time that you think they should. So you could pick up something and be all like, like, I'm not hearing the story right now. And you set it aside and you later just glance at it and like, oh, there's the story. There's the
suddenly
story.
It appears. Right. Exactly. Sometimes I'll run into what I call a stone wall with a piece. I don't know what to do with it. But I know if I put it aside, someplace where I can see it.
Let it rest.
Let it rest, let it speak to me, and it will gradually, I'll have a couple ideas about, how I can, and that's
the next step is.
Yeah, that's why I like paper and photography and those kinds of things, because with ceramics, as I said, it was like stone by the time you
right. Yeah, it's done. It's not flexible.
No, I couldn't do anything with it. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
You like a little more flexibility.
Right.
Yeah.
Do
you ever get done with a piece and feel like I'm done? And then like 2 days later come back and be all like,
nah, that's not working.
I was wrong.
That was wrong. That was the wrong story. The other thing is, because I belong to these couple of groups, and I belong to them, there are 12 of us in each group, actually. We've been friends for years. We have shows together, and we've taken workshops together, and we have parties together. I mean, we're and they are all, several of them are in different kinds of medium, so that you kind of learn from one another about ideas or things that might work with what you're working on. Yeah. So it's like a cross-fertilization with these people. And it's really, really been very, very productive and helpful,
Well, yeah.
You run into a problem and you say, oh, wait, now how am I going to fix this? What am I going to do with this? And you get some ideas, we start talking about it and say, oh yeah, I can do that. And you do the same for them. And
that's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. They're very close friends, and I feel very lucky that I
I agree with you. I
have those two groups. They're really wonderful, wonderful women. They're some of them are married and have partners, but the men are not the artists. The women are the artists.
Right. Yeah. It is an interesting. I don't know. It's an interesting phenomenon. Like the difference between a male and a female artist.
Right.
Even in like the medium they choose and how they tell their stories.
Exactly.
Right? How they tell their stories is very different. Even if you can see similarities, between a male and a female perspective, they still have a different way of telling the story, which I think is also beautiful, because like we need masculine energy.
Oh, sure. Sure.
Like tell that story.
Yeah, go ahead. I want to hear that story, but you're right. Men do, they pick different medium sometimes, you know, they pick, and, you know, I like sort of delicate, fragile looking
Right.
paper and so forth. And I don't know whether there would be anybody, you know, a male that would be interested in that. Well, no, there are some, but you know, it is a different energy, I think.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so when I'm thinking about like my pieces, and I feel like a lot of times I work in a strongly masculine
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
energy,
Mhm.
even though the image is very feminine,
Yeah.
right? Like the image
Cross it
seems
over.
feminine to me, but the material is very strong.
Yeah, and hard.
And yeah, and very masculine. So yeah, I'm like, huh. So now I'm thinking about all the other different things I do. You know,
Uh-huh.
I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I'll have to like really look at my pieces and all of them. And some of that's just a progression and really more about the story
Yeah.
that I'm
Yeah.
telling. Like,
Yeah.
I don't really
And
care
it
what
is a
medium I
progression
use.
as you move through different
Right.
medium, you move through different art pieces. It is a progression, you know, as you get more and more ideas about. We're back to stories again, but you know,
Well,
and
it is a story. And sometimes, like, if I were to use a different medium
uh-huh.
to tell the story, like, the story's not going to be told correctly.
No, 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 no.
You know,
Yeah.
it's not going to say what it needs to say.
Mhm.
So then I end up doing something I've never done before. Like, I don't know. I think I'm going to try this. This sounds like that is the right
You
thing.
know what? Well, you have to give yourself permission to play.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
you have to give yourself permission to say, this is I may fail. This piece may never see the light of day. It may end up in the garbage, you know, whatever. But I'm going to play with it and see what I can do with it. So
Right.
that's part of the joy of being an artist, is to give yourself permission to play
Right.
and,
Yeah.
and not take yourself too seriously.
Right. And I agree. I think that it's a big part of being okay with failing
Mm-hmm.
and being okay with risking.
Right.
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 Like, I have an idea in my head. I have no idea if it's going to work, which
Mhm.
is usually how it begins.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. So all I know is that here's what I'm going to try
Mhm.
to bring to life.
Right.
And so yeah, that's an interesting perspective.
Yeah. Well, one of the other things I was doing after I started writing these children's picture books, I did some classes with kids, paper craft classes with
Oh,
kids
fun.
all over the county. Mostly kids, well, above the age of 6 and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And it gave me a sense of what it's like to just play.
Right.
Because kids do not sit there and say, oh my, this isn't right, this isn't exact, this isn't what. They just go for it. You give them a project and they just, you know, and they just
Paste and stick and paint and
yeah,
color
and they don't, and it comes out so free and so wonderful. And I've learned a lot from just watching these children do these paper crafts, making books and, you know, other kinds of paper crafts.
That's a beautiful thing for you.
Mhm. Yeah.
For the kids too, you know. And it's sad that we don't stay there, right?
Yeah,
that
we don't, and that's
stay
unfortunate.
in that free flow.
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad or anybody likes it. Like,
Right.
that we don't stay there.
No. And I like to get back into that mode sometimes, just to give myself permission to play.
Right.
Because it's so freeing.
Yeah.
You know, and
well, and I feel like it brings in stories, right? It opens up, to hearing stories.
Right.
You know, when
Right.
there's no expectation.
Right. Exactly. And the expectation is always on, you're your worst enemy in terms of
Always.
expectation, if you're producing a piece for a show, you think, oh my God, is this going to make it? Is it going to be juried in? Is it going to, But if you're just doing a piece and you're having fun with it, sometimes that piece turns out to be phenomenal.
The amazing piece.
Yes, right. Exactly. And that's what happens. I haven't been able to do the classes because of COVID with the kids, but I really miss that experience.
Well, hopefully that'll get back to normal and
yeah,
be able to do that, because I'm sure it's something that the kids have really missed.
Yeah.
Doing that kind of stuff. I know that I think it's super important for our kids to have that. And part of that's because a lot of that's been removed out of schools.
Right.
And so they need some place to express themselves.
Right.
To tell their story, so to speak.
Right. Right. Yeah. One of the books that I'm now working on is a picture book for kids about paper craft. And with directions and examples and different kinds of book forms and so forth, and it's coming. And I think part of it that's kind of stopping is because I'm not teaching these kids.
Right.
I'm not
you don't have any
their world
connection with them.
Yeah, and I've sent out some of the pictures to pages to my granddaughter and my grandson with getting their feedback and so forth. So maybe that'll get me back into doing this book.
I agree, because you need that kid energy.
Yeah.
You need that kid energy.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Well, fingers crossed that happens soon. I mean, hopefully we get.
Well, we don't have any control over it. We just have to go with the flow and see what happens. But right. I'm hoping to be able to.
I wonder if there's some other ways. Like, I wonder if you could do like a Zoom.
I could. I could do.
You feel like you would miss the energy, like you wouldn't be able.
Yeah, there's nothing. There's something about having kids around a table,
present,
and you got the interaction and you got the energy. Even when I go visit my grandchildren, I sometimes will take a project.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a nice way to interact with them, focused on something but besides them and me.
Right.
and we're working on something together, and it's very, very satisfying.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. And the other are my art pieces. So it's BerylReichenbergArt.com. And they're fairly simple.
Great. Beryl, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
It's been a pleasure, yes. And I guess you should know that I also produce the newsletter for the collective. So
let's take a second and talk about the collective, because that's kind of a relatively new thing, right?
Right.
So tell me a little bit about that. And I can't wait to be at the board meeting.
Well, the art museum in San Luis Obispo Loma Art Museum, when it wanted to become a museum, they could no longer have artist groups. And the artist groups, there were 5 artist groups in the museum. We have been with the museum for, over 20, 30 years.
Wow.
And as an integral part. As a matter of fact, the people who started the art museum were artists, and they were the ones that found the money to buy the building and put the art center together. Arnie Nyback and a few other famous people, artists all, and put a lot of work and time into it. But unfortunately, this year, the art museum decided that they could no longer have art groups. So we scurried around, and we decided we didn't want to let the art groups dissipate and disappear.
Right.
They were too important for us in terms of classes, in terms of being part of the community, in terms of shows and so forth. So we put together this, Carl and several others put together this Central Coast Artist Collective. There are 3 groups that joined the collective: photographers, sculptors, and craft makers.
Nice.
A couple of the other groups decided to go off on their own. So we're trying to make a go of it. And we have a newsletter that goes out to our over 200 members. We have our...
I'm gonna sneeze. I'm gonna sneeze.
What?
Okay, I had to sneeze. I was like,
oh, you just sneezed. That's all right. And
let's say that again.
We'll see. We let everybody in for free from the groups that are originally part of the art groups this year. But next year we're going to have to start charging $30 a piece because we have to pay insurance and some other things. We've got some expenses. So we're hoping that most of the members will continue to be members of the collective. And we've got shows promised, and we're got some people looking out for pop-up galleries, which were part of the sculpture group.
Yeah, Carl told me about those, and I tell you, I haven't been able to stop thinking about them. I'm like, ooh, what can I do here? What can I do here?
Yeah.
You know,
So,
I love that idea. Like,
yeah,
so
and it has taken quite a bit of work, but we're committed to making this go. And so anybody who is interested in joining a collective or joining one of the groups, contact us. We have a website which you'll put on, and we have a email address as well, so they can get in touch with us, and you'll be part of the team, and we'll see where we go.
Yay, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Right.
Thank you for doing this.
Oh, yeah,
It's
my
fun,
pleasure.
actually.
I'm having so much fun.
Yeah, I'm having fun too.
I'm having so much fun. So I really look forward to what this does for us as a group, as a community, as like I hope that it's I'm in.
Good.
I told Carl on our live, I was like, I'm happy to pay my membership fee.
Oh, good. Terrific. We'll put you down.
Get me in. Send me a bill. What do I need to do?
Okay, terrific. Thank you. I appreciate your help. Yeah, it's been great.
Good.